Welcome to another episode of the Superbold podcast. I'm Fred Joyal, and I have a dear longtime friend on today, and we are going to cover a very interesting topic. His name is Dr. David Madow. You may know him and his brother Rich from the longtime dental convention, the best seminar ever, which I had the opportunity to speak at several times and attended most of them because 800 Dentists was a sponsor of that convention, and it was the greatest time. But we're not going to talk much about that. We're going to dive into that a little bit, but mostly we're going to talk about a completely different topic, plant medicine, and Dave's experience with it and what he's doing with it to help people. And so, Dave, great to see you, man. Welcome to the show.
Fred, thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
So let's cover the boldness that it takes to call yourself the best seminar ever. When did you realize that needed to be the title?
It's funny. When we first started the seminar back, and I would call it like a conference because it really turned into like a much bigger thing than a seminar itself, but it was basically a conference in Vegas every year. We first started it. That was not the name. That was not the original name. The original name, I don't know if you remember it back this far, but it was called the Richards Report Super Fall Seminar, based on the name from our newsletter that we started many, many years ago. But the people, the attendees, the doctors and the team members that kept coming back year after year, they started actually referring to this as, this is the best seminar ever, the best seminar. And when Rich and I heard that enough, we said, hey, we're going to start calling it the best seminar ever. So it's kind of the attendees actually called it that.
Oh, it was self-branded.
Yes,
I love
exactly,
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then you guys decided to up the ante on being the entertainers, not just bringing in great speakers. I mean, one of the great things about the seminar, which doesn't exist anywhere, nobody does this, is everything happened in the main room. And so the whole crowd was experiencing the same thing at the same time. It was also great to be an exhibitor there because you had the wisdom to always make them have to walk through the exhibit hall to get to the conference center, which is the ADA applies the opposite principle. If they can put it 2 floors away, they'll actually do it, the exhibit hall. But you guys started. When did the songs come in? Because I was never there for the Richards Report version of it.
Right.
When did you guys start doing the song stuff?
From day one. From day one, we knew whatever the thing was called, we knew this had to be very different than any other dental conference out there. And you nailed it, by the way, when you said we made it a point that everybody, dentists and team members, are in the same room all day long. There's no breakout sessions where some people are here. So that like ups the energy. So we started off our very first one ever. It was a smaller one. It was in Baltimore. It was kind of like the test. And by small, I mean we had 300 to 400 people. So for the first shot, that's not bad at all. It ultimately went to thousands and thousands of people in Vegas. But anyway, the very first one we did, Rich and I did a little music video to start the thing off, and it was to the tune of not to the tune of, it was actually the song by Queen, Bicycle. And that led to a whole bunch of stuff that was going on. And then ultimately, Rich and I rode into the conference room on these little bicycles. Everybody was clapping, and we got up and did some kind of song. And it was just, that's the way the whole thing started.
Yeah, and over the years, you would take a song and write dental lyrics for it, and everybody was just, the beauty of that was nobody was dumb enough to be late on the first day because they did not want to miss what you guys were going to do. It was also great as a speaker because you always got the main room. You got everybody,
Exactly,
and the crowd was always fired up. I mean, the people who got T-shirts and sat in the front row, and their whole team would have the seminar T-shirts on. It was, the enthusiasm was high. So But
Absolutely.
you have retired the seminar. I think you did it in advance of COVID. You guys were prescient in that, and
It was a lot of luck because our last one that we did was fall of 2019, and then of course 2020. I don't have to say. Should I say more? I mean, the timing was very, very lucky. We could have been in big trouble had we had one scheduled for the fall of 2020. But people keep asking us to this. It's been so good. It's been 4 years, almost 4 years now. Rich and I get emails and messages all the time. Are you guys gonna do this again? Can you bring it back? Can you do something? So Rich and I were not to go this direction at all because but Rich and I were on the phone the other day and we said, like, what would it be like if we did another one? So I'll leave it at that. I'm not promising anything.
yeah, well, because there's the trade shows have gotten progressively less attended. I mean, they have never recovered really, and they haven't adapted. It is more of the same, and we're seeing big exhibitors not go. Like I was just at the California Dental Association. Dentsply didn't even exhibit Dentsply
Oh,
Sirona.
wow.
They would normally have an 80 by 80
Yeah.
with tons of equipment there. And they went, no, we have DS World every year in September. We're going to put all our money into that. And Patterson was like a 20 by 20. It was people are realizing that this is not as good an investment. And of course, the societies never do anything to abate the loss of traffic or anything. They want more money, and so do the Teamsters. And so people are looking for alternative things. That's why DS World is so popular, is because it's incredibly entertaining. I mean, they took your thing and they went crazy. They brought in massive bands and stuff like that. Nobody as good as you and Rich, but like One Republic and Katy Perry and stuff like that.
Well, thanks for that. I appreciate that, Ray.
So, let's talk about what you struggled with and how you have found some remarkable results treating it in an alternative way. Because
Sure. It's an interesting question, and many years later, like I'm not even sure what I struggle with. I can try to guess, and there are a lot of things, a bunch of things in my life that probably came together and ultimately came back to haunt me. But since you brought up the dental world, I will say that for those of you that don't know my brother Rich and I have been partners, and we co-founded this the Madow Center for Dental Practice Success many years ago. When it first started, I was a little more behind the scenes, I guess you would say. I was kind of like the guy that was writing all the marketing copy. I loved direct mail back then. I immersed myself in that, and I was having a great time. And really enjoyed it. And then Rich was mainly more of the front man. He was more of the writer, the talented guy, the funny guy. And so things were going great with this arrangement. But it got to the point where I did a lot of speaking also and performing on stage. And as much as I loved it, I would have to say that I'm probably everybody thinks I'm so outgoing and you're such an extrovert, but I don't think I am. And this might tie into your Superbold thing too. I'm not sure if you've covered this or not, but I think looking back, I think I'm probably an extroverted introvert, if that makes any sense at all. I mean, I can speak to anybody. I'm the type of guy that goes into the Whole Foods and I can have a conversation with the cashier for like a half an hour. I can meet people very easily. But when it came to the stage part, I think being on stage along with my very talented brother Rich, who likes to be kind of the front man, and good for him. He's super talented. I don't have nearly as much talent, but trying to do that year after year after year after year, I think that probably just at some point it got to me, and I just felt like I don't really want to be on the stage anymore. But I never really said that, but I just kept doing it. And I think it got to the point where I just developed a lot of anxiety and some depression over the years. I started feeling really weird, Fred, and I didn't even know what the feeling was from. And I still don't know exactly. And it probably doesn't matter exactly. But I just started having, over the years, I started just getting a lot of anxiety and just weird feelings about this. And also not loving it the way I used to. So I had to kind of back off a little bit and take a little sabbatical. Rich and I are still co-founders together, and we're still 50-50 partners, but he's doing the work, and I'm just kind of doing my thing here in Salt Lake now.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because to my listeners there, I mean, it's true. You would see both Dave and his brother Rich as incredibly outgoing people, really comfortable on stage. And I think I am an introvert extrovert myself, because I like time alone. I get a lot of stuff done alone. That's important. But I had to teach myself to be bold, to get on stage. And there were urges to do that, but there were much louder voices saying, "You're going to suck at this. You're going to be embarrassed." We as human beings, we spend a tremendous amount of time worrying about what strangers think about us. And the reality is, they don't think about us that much, right? They think about us for a split second or two. They put us in a category and they're done with us. And a lot of times it's hard to fix it. And we're doing it. We do the same thing. We categorize these people in a few seconds, and then sometimes they disabuse us of that notion as we get to know them. But that held me back for a long time until I finally, speaking was the experience for me. Was I realized 5 or 10% of the people think that everything I said was brilliant, and then 5 to 10% of the people thought I was an idiot and should never be on stage. And the rest of the people were somewhere in the middle, either paying attention or not, or getting some value or whatever. And knowing that I was never going to get everybody, and that there were going to be detractors and stuff like that, you adjust and you go, okay, this has to be, acceptable, because there's no fixing it, because they come in with such a huge bias. It's not a dentist. How can he possibly tell me anything about what it's like to run a dental practice? I don't know. Maybe I know 2,000 dentists who are really more successful than you. Might be one way. But I think that what you did, I think a lot of people experience as we age, is there are shifts where we've lost the joy of life, and we start to stack up. Now, a lot of people, they're hesitating and missing opportunities and stacking regrets. But you've gone boldly into life and then found a place where it was no longer working for you. And that kind of created, whether we label it a depression or not, it was like, what now? What, right? Because it's this thing that was feeling right no longer feels right, feels really wrong, and it's creating sort of a hole in you because you don't know where to go.
Well, it's also, I'm going to just give you a real brief outline of the speaking thing, becoming bold, because when I first got on stage to do this, the dental gigs, and when I first started speaking to audiences, and oftentimes very large audiences, I was scared to death, and I wasn't confident. I'm sure I had stage fright. It probably wasn't pretty looking back. But over doing it for many, many, many years, and you're a professional speaker. You have to. It's when you find your voice, and you really know your material cold. There's no stage fright. You get up there, you talk about what you want to talk about. You're very confident. And like you just said, yeah, I know that a certain percentage think it's bullshit. It doesn't matter because you get way past that. And when I would see an audience paying attention and glowing, it kind of gives you a high, and you get better and better and better. So I got to the point where there was zero stage fright, but there was something. I kind of lost my passion for the whole thing. Maybe after doing it for like decades, I just lost my passion, and that's kind of when the anxiety started setting in, and all the other crazy things. So I knew I had to do something. I couldn't keep doing the same thing. That's the definition of insanity when you just keep doing the same thing. So I had to make a change.
So what age did this happen?
I'm sorry, at what age?
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to give my age? Is that what you're trying to get at?
No. When did you feel the passion disappear?
Oh. Okay. Well, it's almost like you're going to be my therapist right now, because it's very complex, Fred. Very complex. When I first got into dental school, how many people are going to be watching this? I'm afraid to share this with a lot of people here.
It's a podcast.
Oh, that's right. It's audio, but how many people are listening? A lot. Okay, I'm gonna say it. It's probably the first time I've ever admitted this in front of an audience. When I got into dental school and started going through dental school, I felt somewhere in my heart this was not my passion. It's something about it. I mean, dentistry, as you say to your audiences, dentistry is a great profession, and it truly is. I felt that there wasn't like a 100% match. Something was weird. But I went through dental school. I did really well. I did some associateships and started my own practice, and it was very successful. But something still didn't feel right, and I knew I didn't want to do this for the rest of my life. So then we morphed into Rich and I both morphed into the speaking part of it, and coming up with products, and having a dental conference and all this kind of stuff, and that was great. However, there came a point where I could speak on the stage as much as I could, but there was still some underlying factor that, if this makes sense at all, that I wasn't passionate. I felt like I was losing the love of dentistry. And so I was speaking to large audiences about something that I just wasn't passionate about. And I was good. I think I was pretty good, but something was lost there. And I think that's when things started going downhill. And I know that's kind of complex, but I think that's what happened.
No, I think it's pretty clear, actually, because I think people experience it. Like some people they chase a dream and get it, and say, "Wow, that wasn't anywhere near as satisfying as I thought it would be."
Yeah,
especially in this world of capitalism, like I need a 10,000 square foot house and a Mercedes and a Jaguar and a Hummer in the garage and a trophy wife, trophy husband, whatever that is, and kids and stuff and all of a sudden it's, wow, that made me about 8% happier, and
yes.
I don't know what to do. And I think that's, when people ask me now, they say, what is your purpose in life? And I say, to challenge and support everyone in my life to chase their dreams more boldly, because
Beautiful.
a lot of times they get trapped in this narrow definition of what their dream should look like, and they don't know what to do when it's not satisfying. And I think your bold move was, you said, I have to unplug from this. I don't know where to go. I just know where I have to go from. And that's powerful, because that's stepping into the void.
Well, I'll tell you. So back in the day when this, our Madow Center for Dental Practice Success and TBSE, the best seminar ever, were in their heyday. Look, I mean, I have no problem admitting that a lot of money was coming in. A lot of money, and I was living that life with with my previous wife, and we 2 kids in private school, and the big house and the fancy cars in the garage. And guess what? That does not necessarily bring happiness. I'm here to say, because I'm on the other side now. That marriage ended back around 2001. I'm remarried to a wonderful woman. We lived in Maryland still. We continue to live in Maryland, but about 4 to 5 years ago, we sold everything we owned, everything, and moved to Salt Lake City, where I am right now, living a dream life. We downsized. I'm basically renting. I don't own a house anymore. Renting this house, and guess what? And we got some possessions, but as long as I have my skis, my running shoes, my bicycles, I'm good. But I can safely say that I am so much happier with this more minimalistic lifestyle, living in a place that I really truly want to be, doing exactly what I want to do every day. I mean, look, I was speaking about dentistry every day. I was involved in dentistry every day. These days, I'm involved in talking about drugs, marijuana, and psilocybin. And guess what? I'm so much happier doing this. It's like when I was in high school smoking weed with my friends, I never realized that, what was it, 50 years down the road, I'd be doing podcasts on helping people improve their lives through plant medicine. I mean, this is my dream. And no, I'm not, I don't think I'm wealthy, but that doesn't matter, because I feel really good every single day, and I feel happy, and I feel like life is giving me exactly what I want now.
Well, you just 50-year sidetrack. That's all. Nothing to
No big deal.
To get pressed about.
No big deal. But I don't have a whole lot more of those 50-year sidetracks. That's the only problem.
I know. Well, and that's the other thing is, what you experience, and I hope people who are feeling a similar thing can identify it. You reach an age where you realize your life is finite, and it doesn't happen in your 30s. But all of a sudden in your 40s, and you click maybe 50 or something like that, and you say, wow, that decade went by pretty fast, and these things are not satisfying. And so I know what it took to create this life. How do I create the next one and get off this one? And I call it a post-materialistic life, because you're chasing how to feel good about what you do every day, to how to be joyful and excited about it, and now I've felt like this is the kind of impact I want to have on people. I want to help them understand what I have discovered about plant medicine, and of course, we live in a world where you're going to be judged about that. There's going to be a whole bunch of people that think you should be locked up.
Guess what? Though, I've approached the point of boldness in my life that I no longer care. I mean, of course, if I'm on my podcast talking about microdosing magic mushrooms, there are going to be people that say, yeah, this guy should be in the loony bin, or he shouldn't be doing this. I don't care. I know in my life, I'm doing the right thing. I'm helping a lot of people. It's helped my life. So I'm like my own guinea pig. And Fred, I'm way past that point of caring about what other people think, way past. And I think for your listeners also, in order to become super bold and get on to that next part of your life, it's really crucial that you can't worry about what somebody else thinks. If you're approaching, like I know in your book, you've talked about just approaching a stranger on the street and having a conversation. Now, look, that stranger could say, they could say, get out of here, wacko. I don't want to talk to you. And that could happen, but who cares? Who cares?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And so that stuff doesn't matter to me anymore whatsoever. And I finally, when you finally realize it doesn't matter, it opens up the door for just, you attract so many more people anyway.
And the younger you learn that, the better. My favorite audience is high school students. It's like you live in this environment where all you worry about is what the other people in class think about you. And except for a small group of you that decide, that they're going to do theater and they're going to get on stage, even though somebody's going to say, well, you must be gay to do that. You say, well, I might be gay, but I don't really care if you think I am or not. I want to do theater. I want to get up on stage. Oh, you're just a show off. And all of that will come at you. But if you can let that go before you get to college, you can craft a life where you're chasing your dreams and you're not, those voices get quieter and quieter because they play in your head, just like what your parents said to you over and over again. That gets infused and you don't even know you're replaying it. So let's talk about what I have done mushrooms myself, but it was years ago, and I almost did it again, but it didn't turn out to be that way. I was on a men's vision quest kind of thing, and we got into this very powerful discussion, and the spirit master that was there said, it's 11 o'clock at night. We're not doing psilocybin anymore. He says, I don't want to have to go try to find you guys in the dark. And he said, this was the work we needed to do. And it was true. It was an incredible experience. But I remember personally, the last time I did mushrooms, there was a full-on epiphany for me about my relationship with my father. And it changed my perspective on my parents completely, my relationship with my mother and my father. My father had passed away by that time, but I realized for the first time how emotionally connected I was and empathetic I was towards him, because I always blamed him for the divorce. And then I realized in that sort of a time travel moment where I went back to being 13 years old, that I felt his pain of losing my mother's love. And I was totally sympathetic to him rather than my mom, even though intellectually I said, oh, well, of course, he doesn't know how to be affectionate. He doesn't know how to say the right things. He doesn't, they were incredibly bad communicators. They could argue fiercely, but they never resolved. There was never, my brother and I would watch it it's like everything ends in a tie here. It's crazy. But that, I remember that. And also the times that you do something like this, you start to see more out there than I thought about the universe and about myself. And it's
true.
transformational, but that's my personal experience.
And I take it you probably were not microdosing. It sounds like you were probably macrodosing. That's what.
No, I was slamming. I was the other way around.
Exactly.
Like a whole handful. Yeah. So explain the concept of microdosing, because this is going to be very new for some people.
Well, so in order to do that, I need to give a little bit of background. So when I moved here to Salt Lake a few years back, that's when the anxiety and I'm going to say depression that went along with it. I was never like formally diagnosed as depression, but I know it was. I knew I had to do something, and it was Fred. It was this feeling like almost every day was getting unbearable. And one morning, it was 3 a.m. I woke up to use the bathroom, and I just felt really, really strange. Something just didn't feel right, and I went downstairs to take my blood pressure, and for some reason it was like 200 over 110 something. It was just something crazy was going on, and I immediately woke my wife up and said, "You got to take me to the emergency room." It was horrible what I was going through. Luckily, they were able to calm it down, and that worked out that night, thank God, because it could have been really bad. But from there, I knew that I had to do something. I went to my doc. Then I found a psychiatrist I was going to here locally, and the psychiatrist, good guy, really good guy from the East Coast actually, and he started putting me on some medication, and we did a little talk therapy. It was mainly medication, and at first it didn't work. The results were actually kind of bad. I didn't like the medication he put me on, but eventually he tweaked me to to Lexapro SSRI, which really did seem to help. But I was also, on the bad days that I just didn't feel right, I was taking a little bit of like Valium to kind of get me through. So I knew that this is not the way that I want to live. I mean, I might be old to some people, but I'm still relatively young. I'd like to think. And it was not the way that I wanted to live out the rest of my life, like taking Lexapro every day and then supplementing that with Valium if I had to. And it was horrible. So even though it was somewhat working, I started doing some research, and somehow I came across people that were microdosing magic mushrooms, which contains psilocybin. That's the active drug. And I really started looking into it, but I didn't look into it too deeply. I just said, this sounds like something I really want to try. I mean, they claim that it rewires your brain, and if once you start microdosing, you don't have to be on it for the rest of your life, like antidepressants or pharmaceuticals. So I said, this is for me. This is what I want to try. This. I never back in high school, and I'm a product of the 60s and 70s, and I did a lot of marijuana, but I never did anything beyond that. And when my friends were all doing psychedelics, I was always afraid of them. I never did anything like that. But a microdose, by definition, is a subperceptual dose of whatever you're using. In this case, I'm talking about magic mushrooms, psilocybin. It's a subperceptual dose, so it's approximately 1/10 of the dose that like you maybe took back in the day, or somebody's taking to go to a party or a concert, or sitting at home, just they want to have a psychedelic journey. It's 1/10 of that. So the idea is you can take these microdoses and not go on a full-blown psychedelic trip. You can go about your day, you can feel great, but you're not having any psychedelic effects. So I started this. I just tried it, and I didn't even know what dose to use. I was talking to some people that are more in this, that knew more about it than I did, and they recommended a certain dose, which back then was 200 milligrams. That was at 0.2 grams. That was the first time I ever did it. And just to give your listeners an idea, 0.2 grams, multiply that times 10, which is 10 grams. Which is 2 grams. That's still not a very large dose of mushrooms. It's kind of a medium dose. So this is a very, very tiny dose. So I dosed the 0.2 grams. I was kind of hanging around the house a little bit, watching some TV, went over across the street where the park right across the street. I put on some headphones. I was listening to Sergeant Pepper, but I was totally fine. I was totally had my wits about me and could do it, totally functional. But I don't know if this was psychological or not, but I started feeling better from that first dose. And immediately I felt like I do not need any more of this diazepam that's supplementing my days with the SSRI, with the Lexapro. So I immediately, from that point on, from like the second or third day of microdosing, got rid of the diazepam, got rid of the Valium. Never needed that again. I started feeling progressively better and better and better. I remember about 2 or 3 months into my microdosing journey, I went into my psychiatrist. I had my regular appointment, and I always carry a journal with me. I love to, in this, and I'm a tech guy like you are, but I still love writing things down manually. And I made a list of things that I thought the mushrooms have taught me about my past, about my profession, about my ex-wife, about trauma that I've had in my first marriage. I wrote it all down, and I went in and I said, "Hey, doc, I got some thoughts that came to my mind from this microdosing. And I think this is what I figured out." And I read him like a little bulleted list. And he looked at me and said, "David, this is actually incredible. What you've learned about yourself and your past, it would have taken 10 to 20 years of talk therapy to learn this. And I learned it in a couple months." I knew I was onto something. I mean, psilocybin actually, it doesn't just mask something. It just doesn't give you more serotonin. It totally like rewires your neural pathways. So here I am, a little over 2 years after starting microdosing, that closing in on 2.5 years now. I feel like a different person, Fred. I feel really good. I feel good about my life. I just feel like every day is special. I'm not high. I just that's the way I naturally feel now. I feel it absolutely has rewired my brain and the way I feel every day.
So it's not euphoric, but you're life is kind of euphoric, in that it's, because I have that vacillation too. It's like some days because mostly I feel great. And people say, well, when things go bad, what do you do? I say, well, I'm like a dog. I go to sleep and I wake up and fix it. But there are days where I just I feel out of sync, and my energy's off, my clarity's off, my optimism, all of those things are off, and it's disturbing to me because I'm not normally that way. But it's right. Interesting that you have found a way, and we're just a bag of chemicals, right? And we're just all of the and it's just what the brain thinks is going on. There's so much more in neuroscience that they're discovering. It feels like on a weekly basis that reveals that there's so much more that can be done, and so much that has happened to us that there are ways to fix it. Because there are people treating PTSD, coming back from Afghanistan or something like that, soldiers who are severely traumatized, and they're having huge success with plant medicine treatments. Huge. Sure. And as you say, rapid, relatively speaking.
PTSD is absolutely one of the issues that magic mushrooms can help with, for sure. The biggest ones are anxiety, depression, PTSD, or some other type of trauma. But that's like perfect for plant medicine for sure. But let me add something to what you just said about some days. Well, I'm glad to hear that every day for you is not a perfect day, and sometimes you feel a little bit down or whatever, question, because guess what? That makes you human. And I don't want anybody to be listening to this and think that, oh my God, Dr. Dave, every day is perfect for him, and he's like on this high and everything's great. No, something. My life is fantastic now. However, there's definitely, just like you said, there's an occasional day. I remember about 3 weeks ago, I was walking around, of all places, a Costco, and for some reason, I just felt weird. I didn't feel right. Not ill, but I mean, mentally, I felt like I was a little bit down or something, but something just wasn't right. But the way I correct that now is I say to myself, there's really no reason for me to be feeling this. I'm not sure why I feel like this, but I am positive within 24 hours, I won't be feeling this anymore. So I'm just going to ride it out, and it's okay. And guess what? Every single time that works. There's not necessarily a reason. There's not a trigger. But I know that it's just a temporary thing, and it's going to go away, and it either goes away later that day or by the next day, 100% for sure. So, we still want to be human. There's nothing wrong with having some type of thoughts like this. We're human beings, and like you said, a bag of chemicals. So we will have days like that. We will have thoughts like that, but they also will totally go away and back to baseline, which is a good baseline.
Yeah, and I think that's what gets people down, is they think, is this ever going to end? They don't believe there's a way out, and that you sort of double down on the depression. It's because it seems like it's permanent.
Yes. And by the way,
go ahead.
I do want to add, because this is really important in my journey, and I just to make sure we don't forget this part. So there came a point where it was roughly 7 to 8 months into my microdosing journey that I started weaning myself. And I asked my psychiatrist and my doctor about this, and he said, yes, absolutely, go for this. I started weaning myself off of the antidepressant, off of the Lexapro. And I did it very slowly, because anybody that's on a SSRI does not want to just stop cold turkey or even do it fast. I did it very slowly. I kind of did it my way. Went down from 20 milligrams to 10 and stayed there for a while, then went to 5, and just weaned off very slowly. But I'm happy to say that it's been about 1.5 years, I think, since I've been off of antidepressants, and it's just, I don't need them. Like I said, the microdosing has rewired me, and I don't feel I need any pharmaceutical whatsoever for mental health at all. Other than the microdosing.
I think that is important to understand, that the way these treatments work, these pharmaceutical treatments work, is you don't, if you're taking a lot of benzodiazepines, you don't stop that cold turkey. If if you're taking the SSRIs, you can't stop that. It will be horrible.
Yes.
You'll go into a space that you don't know how, you won't believe there's ever going to be a way out of it.
Yes.
So
very true.
Thank you for clarifying that. And of course, this isn't for everybody. This is something you should just be aware of as a listener. I want you to know this isn't some huge endorsement for it. It's just to open your mind to that we can be rewired, and it's to don't just dismiss stuff. I mean, what you should be dismissive of a little bit more, I think, is better living through chemistry. Like let's look at how many pills you're taking a day just to feel normal, and why is that better than trying some plants and seeing what happens? And always do this. You're microdosing, so but there are people doing more intense sessions, but they always do it with what we used to call a trip master, but it's a guide, somebody who's protecting you, because with almost all of these things, the only thing that I have found that or have heard is LSD. Somebody can't necessarily pull you back from a bad trip, but I've always found mushrooms if somebody's there to guide you and you start to go in the wrong direction, they can turn you back. But this is intense dosages. This is not micro. But
and that's another thing. Like when I talk about what I teach and on my podcast, we talk about it's called Microdose U. So we talk about mainly microdosing. However, some people, and there's nothing wrong with this at all, some people would rather start off quicker. And I talked to a lot of people that have started off actually with a macrodose, and they said like that one macrodose, that one session, that one large session of psilocybin, pretty much did the resetting. And then if they choose to go ahead and do microdose sessions after that, it's fine. But many people have said like with 4 or 5 gram journey, it did all the work like right away. And I absolutely believe that. So it just depends. Some people, just don't want to macrodose. They don't want to, they're afraid of a bad trip, which I don't think there's any such thing. I've learned there's no such thing as a bad trip. The mushrooms kind of point you in the direction of where they think you need to see. So there's really not a bad trip. It could bring out a lot of trauma from your life. But that's not a bad trip. That's learning about something that's going on deep inside of you, actually.
Yeah, for people to deal with PTSD, they have to be immersed in it, but there's some sort of protective thing going on at the same time that the plant is doing as you're reliving it. It's more release of it rather than a reliving of it, and I think that's really powerful. And also the point you made is, this doesn't turn into like, oh, I'm going to be tripping every weekend now because it's so great. Many times it's 1 or 2 sessions that are transformational.
Yes.
And so Fred, I think we need to move in that direction. We need to open our mind to what else is possible, and that we can be healed, that we can reset ourselves, we can release ourselves from deep trauma.
Yeah, and it's also the same with microdosing. Like if you start a microdosing journey or regimen for mental health issues, you can look at it as it's not the type of thing that you need to do for the rest of your life. It's going to reset things and rewire. So like right now, 2+ years into this journey, I feel that the mushrooms have done their work for me. Now I continue to microdose when I want to, because again, it's a I can't explain it other than it just feels right. But do I have to? Absolutely not. I just don't have any of those feelings at all anymore of like anxiety or depression. And so they've done their work, but I still really do enjoy the feeling from microdosing psilocybin, admittedly.
And so you have a podcast, so let's talk a little bit about that. So listeners, if they want to get deeper into this, you do a regular podcast on this.
I do, and it's called. There we go. It's wait back there. I got it. It's called Microdose.
If you're listening, he's pointing to a sign
right.
in his mouth.
That's right. Sorry about that. I forget. Since we're on video now, I keep forgetting that it could be audio as well. So yeah, my podcast is called Microdose U. If you just do a search anywhere, it's on all the platforms: Apple, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you want to go. I've been doing it almost as long as I started a little bit after my microdose journey started, because I felt this was such important information for people to know. I wanted to kind of get it out there. So it's changed a lot in the 2+ years I've been doing this podcast, because at first I didn't know as much as I know now. Now that I've discovered so many more things about it, like every episode is just, I try to keep the episodes really short, Fred. They're like generally 10 to 15 minutes an episode, just kind of bite-sized chunks of information. And it's like I'm speaking to somebody, like we're sitting in a living room. I'm not preaching from an ivory tower. It's very, very informal. And I've done some episodes that I've actually called the absolute beginner's guide to microdosing magic mushrooms. So if somebody knows zero, they know absolutely nothing, but they're just curious and want to know more, take a look, find the episode that's called the absolute beginner's guide to microdosing, and it will tell you pretty much anything you need to know. And I just love, it's worked so well for me. I just love getting the word out there. And I make it very clear on my show that this is not medical advice. I'm telling you, giving you my personal experience from it, and from others that I've known as well. But it's not to be taken as medical advice. You got to see your doctor.
So if I need to score some mushrooms, are you the guy? Are you my man?
Well, I know you're kidding. I know you're saying that tongue in cheek. However, but since you did say that, that's something I've done, because since this podcast has been growing and growing, I get asked that question all the time. And so I've made the decision, even from the beginning, I don't even talk about sourcing at all. I mean, I just say to people, it's not difficult. Talk to people that you know. 2+ years ago, I knew nothing, and it's very, very easy, but I make it a point to draw that line and stay away from any kind of sourcing, because, I really want to give information. I really want to talk about my personal journey and how this can help almost anybody's mental health issues. But I do not want to become a drug dealer or dealing with the medicine itself. I just don't want to go
Dr. Dave. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
In that way. Yeah, no, that's great to know that, but I really appreciate this conversation and the years that we've known each other. It's always great to have some time and reconnect and see where our journeys are taking us. And I think what you're doing is very powerful right now. And I think you're on a high impact track, and I admire you for it, for the boldness to put this out there for people and really help them. I love this stage in your life. I love seeing how happy you are in your marriage, and that you've discovered a way to really make this an exciting next chapter of your life and fulfilling life. So
I appreciate the opportunity to come on your show, and I don't think I haven't thought this for a second. I mean, if Rich and I ever decide to do another large dental conference, it's not a guarantee. If we decide you're on the list to speak, you're going to be there. You know that for sure, 100%. You know that, right?
Oh yes. I appreciate that.
Good.
So everyone, Microdose U is the podcast to get more information from Dr. Madow, and keep on chasing your dreams more boldly out there. Dave, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, Fred. Really appreciate it. Great talking to you.